The United States and Canada, two countries that share more than just a border, more than friends, they're family, bound by history, culture, and mutual respect. Okay, maybe that one slightly unhinged uncle, but still family. You know, the kind of family where you can joke around and still have each other's backs. They share the world's longest undefended border, a testament to their trust and friendship. For real, it's basically a casual howdy, neighbor. Stroll across most of it. No walls, no fences, just a line on the map. This closeness isn't just geographic, it's economic. Their economies are like two sides of the same coin. We're talking billions upon billions of dollars flowing back and forth annually. Trade that fuels both nations. Cars, lumber, oil, you name it, they trade it. From raw materials to finished products, their trade networks are vast and complex. This intense trading relationship has been going on for centuries. Since the early days of fur trading and timber, it's a love-hate thing, you know? They argue, they debate, but it's all part of the dynamic. They bicker, they squabble, but at the end of the day, they need each other. Their economies are too intertwined to ignore. Think of it like that sitcom where the two main characters are always at each other's throats, but secretly, deep down, they can't imagine life without the other. It's a relationship built on mutual dependence. Now, this isn't to say everything's been rosy. There have been bumps along the way. Trade disputes have flared up over the years, issues that have tested their patience and diplomacy. Remember the softwood lumber spat? Yeah, good times. A classic example of their trade tensions. But for the most part, these two have managed to keep things relatively civil, emphasis on relatively. They know the importance of maintaining a good relationship. The economies of the United States and Canada are deeply intertwined. What happens in one country inevitably impacts the other. When one economy sneezes, the other catches a cold. Their fates are linked in more ways than one. It's like a two-for-one deal, except when the deal goes sour, and then it's just sour. But they always find a way to bounce back. But hey, that's the price of love, eh? The ups and downs are part of the package, or in this case, the price of being neighbors with the world's largest economy. No pressure, Canada, but together they make it work, proving that even the closest of neighbors can thrive together. For decades, the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, was the name of the game. It was a landmark deal that aimed to eliminate trade barriers and foster economic cooperation between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Signed in 1994, it was like that moment in a buddy cop movie where the two protagonists finally agree to work together. The agreement symbolized a new era of collaboration and mutual benefit, except instead of guns and explosions, it was tariffs and trade barriers getting blown up. Mostly. The idea was to create a seamless flow of goods and services across borders, making it easier for businesses to operate and for consumers to access a wider variety of products. NAFTA boosted trade between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Trade volumes surged and the economies of the three countries became more intertwined than ever before. It created jobs, lowered prices, and generally made life a bit easier for businesses operating across the continent. Companies could now source materials and labor from the most efficient locations, leading to cost savings and increased competitiveness. Of course, no agreement is perfect, and NAFTA had its critics. Some people felt that the benefits were unevenly distributed, with certain industries and regions gaining more than others. Some argued it led to job losses, particularly in the manufacturing sector. Factories closed, and workers found themselves out of jobs as companies moved production to countries with lower labor costs. Others claimed it gave corporations too much power. They believed that big businesses were the primary beneficiaries, while workers and small businesses were left to deal with the negative consequences. Fast forward to 2018, and enter Donald Trump stage right, with his signature swagger and a Twitter account that could launch 1,000 trade wars. Trump campaigned on the promise of renegotiating NAFTA, which he called the worst trade deal ever made. Trump, never one to shy away from a good renegotiation, especially when it involved slapping his name on something, decided NAFTA needed a makeover. He believed that the agreement needed to be updated to better protect American workers and industries. Thus, the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA, was born. The new agreement aimed to address some of the criticisms of NAFTA and modernize the trade relationship between the three countries. The USMCA, which went into effect in 2020, updated NAFTA for the 21st century. It included new provisions to address the realities of the modern economy, such as digital trade and intellectual property protections. It included provisions on digital trade, labor standards, and environmental protections. The goal was to create a more balanced and fair trade agreement that took into account the needs of workers and the environment. Think of it as NAFTA 2.0, with a slightly more protectionist bent. The USMCA aimed to ensure that the benefits of trade were more evenly distributed and that the agreement was more responsive to the challenges of the modern world. Whether it was a better deal for all involved is still up for debate. Some experts argue that the changes were necessary and beneficial, while others believe that the new agreement doesn't go far enough in addressing the underlying issues. One thing's for sure though, it added another layer of complexity to the already intricate tapestry of United States-Canada trade relations. The USMCA represents the latest chapter in the ongoing story of North American trade, a story that continues to evolve with each passing year. Now let's talk about Donald Trump's approach to trade. Imagine a bull in a china shop. It's chaotic, unpredictable, and leaves a trail of destruction in its wake. Now imagine that bull is wearing a red tie and tweeting furiously about tariffs. This is not just any bull, it's a bull with a smartphone, constantly sending out messages that shake the market. That's basically Trump's trade policy in a nutshell. His approach was aggressive, direct, and often left people scrambling to understand the next move. His America First agenda put him at odds with many of America's trading partners, including, you guessed it, Canada. The long-standing friendship between the two nations was tested like never before. Trump wasn't afraid to use tariffs as a bargaining chip. He saw them as a tool to force other countries to the negotiating table, regardless of the immediate fallout. He slapped them on Canadian steel and aluminum, claiming national security concerns. This move was controversial and sparked a lot of debate. Canada, understandably miffed, retaliated with tariffs of its own on American goods. It was a tit-for-tat strategy that escalated tensions. It was a classic case of, you want to play hardball? Two can play at that game. Both sides dug in their heels, leading to a standoff. This back-and-forth tariff tango created uncertainty for businesses on both sides of the border. Companies were left in a state of limbo, unsure of how to proceed. The constant threat of new tariffs made it difficult to plan for the future. Business leaders were constantly on edge, waiting for the next tweet or policy change. It was like trying to build a house on a foundation of jelly. Every time you thought you had a solid plan, the ground shifted beneath you. Not exactly a recipe for stability, the unpredictability made it hard to create long-term strategies. Trump's unpredictable style and penchant for protectionism ruffled more than a few feathers in Canada. Canadian officials were often left frustrated and scrambling to respond. The traditionally close relationship between the two countries became strained. What was once a seamless partnership now had visible cracks. It was clear that the special relationship, as it was often called, was being put to the test. The future of US-Canada trade relations hung in the balance, with both sides wary of the next move. Despite the tension, there were moments of hope. Diplomatic efforts continued, with both sides seeking a resolution that could restore stability and mutual benefit. In the end, the goal was to find a way forward that would benefit both nations, ensuring that the economic ties that bind them remain strong and resilient. By 2025, the trade tensions that had been simmering for years finally boiled over. Call it the sequel nobody asked for, Trade War II: Electric Boogaloo. This time, the flashpoint was electric vehicles. The United States, eager to protect its domestic auto industry, introduced new tax credits that heavily favored American-made EVs. Canada, with its own burgeoning EV sector, cried foul. They argued the tax credits were discriminatory and violated trade agreements. Negotiations went down to the wire, but no compromise could be reached. The United States, emboldened by a new wave of economic nationalism, refused to budge. Canada, left with no other choice, decided to fight fire with fire. The Canadian government announced retaliatory tariffs on a wide range of American goods, from electric cars and auto parts to ketchup and maple syrup. Yes, you read that right, maple syrup, because nothing says we're serious like threatening to cut off America's supply of pancake topping. The 2025 trade war was on, and this time, it was personal.